We are doing a little bit of trout fishing here in northeast Iowa, and what I would like to show you today is kind of the, let's just say, the casting and techniques and just the full process behind fly fishing. So I myself have been fly fishing since about the day I turned 8. I've been enjoying many summers in northeastern Iowa fly fishing for trout, and also back home in Waterloo doing a little bit of pan fishing. But I've also taken a few trips to Alaska and along with that Montana to do some fly fishing there as well. So I've been around a fly rod for quite a few years now, and I'm happy to get to hopefully teach you guys a little bit about the casting and processes behind fly fishing. So let's just start by diving right on in with casting. So first what I'll do is I'll go ahead and show you the differences between a fly rod and normal rod, and what the big difference is and how it kind of controls how fly fishing works. So Paulie, would you mind coming down here for a second? So first off, the really big thing is the action in fly fishing of the pole. So as you notice, the fly pole here is going to be a much longer pole. And so the big thing about that is this pole is going to be a lot stiffer, made for just casting your little bait. Well, this pole is made for flipping it out and being able to have the action of bringing that line in and out. And so second, what you're going to notice is you're going to notice the reels. Much different style of reel. The reel on here is put at the very end to balance out the overall length of the pole, and also be able to hold your line, but then again stay out of your way so you have plenty of room to cast. For this one, is that's your main source of reeling in. Where this, I'll use the line to reel fish in. And then finally is the line. As you notice, I have my bright green line where we have the thinner line on the normal pole. And so what the line's going to do for fly fishing is your lines will actually is what helps you cast. Because your flies here are so light that it doesn't really do anything for you when it comes to casting. So it's very important you have your good line, and it is going to be much heavier and different, made for casting, and then you'll have a clear leader on there, which then you'll in turn tie your fly to. But now that we have that figured out, you can go ahead and go back to fishing, Paulie. But now that we kind of know the basics around a fly rod, we'll kind of get into the basics of casting. So you just start by bringing your line out just like you would a normal pole and just kind of flip it in the water. So what we're going to do is we're going to get out a healthy amount of line, and it's very simple. It's just all about bringing the rod tip up and snapping it back down. Slowly bringing that rod tip, holding the line, bringing that rod tip up, letting it go out. So what you're seeing here is the fly is going to come to the very end of the cast, and once it gets to the end of the cast, I'm going to snap it back forward and lay it back down in my intended hole of where I want my fly line at. So, in the article I read by Perkins in Orvis Tactics and Guides to Fly Fishing, he mentioned that it's not all about how fast you snap your line down, it's about how graceful you get your line up out of the water. So that's also a very important part of fly fishing. So those are just the very, very basics of fly casting. So we'll go ahead and do it one more time. We have our line out here. We put our line in the water, get some line out to hold, bring it up, and snap her down. Gracefully bring her back up and back down. And then all that's going to do is just pitch your line straight out and drop your fly into your intended hole. So next, now that we kind of have the basics of casting, you can go ahead and come in a little closer here. I can kind of show you the difference in what we have for flies for fly fishing. So when it comes to the process of fly fishing, it all depends on location, location, location. So in Iowa, we're going to have a lot more smaller species fish. As I pointed out earlier, we had our smaller brown trout. And so basically what we're going to use to target those is we have a very, very large array of flies. So we have big wet flies, which are going to have these big bead heads here. And what those big bead heads are going to do is help that fly sink to the bottom, and that's what I personally love the most. But then we're also going to have dry flies here, which is going to be this foam one here, no bead head, no weight. And dry fly is what's going to be what floats across the top. So the big part about fly fishing is just mimicking your fish, or I guess mimicking what your fish is going to want to eat. It's all about your target species. So the small trout in Iowa here are going to want, more smaller things that are going to represent little bugs and larvae. That was mentioned by Jeremy Anderberg on how to get started with fly fishing on December of 2019. And so what he talked about in that article is just mimicking and knowing where you're at. So when he talked about in Iowa, he talked of, using the dry flies to mimic those larvae and, watching for hatches of bugs. Where if you're going bass fishing, which is, bass fishing is what Chasten Whitfield of Flycasting, TakeMeFishing.org of May of 2019, he talked of bass fishing and how you're going to want to, target more of a frog-based thing or a topwater mouse, something a bass is going to want to eat versus, small little larvae. So that's really your big difference there. So it's just all about where you're at and, what you're fishing for, knowing your target, asking guys around at the local bait shop, and knowing what you want to hit. And so just kind of to wrap everything up, fly fishing can be as basic or as hard as you want to make it, and it's all about, bringing that rod tip up, and slowly bringing her back down. And so I hope I sparked something within some of you guys to try something new and maybe get out on the stream.